Hey guys, Kalf here, and today we are going to be covering how to make yourself ride arrows like this, because Phoenix SC made a video last week where he kind of showed off this concept and said it's kind of funny that you were able to do this, and he never actually showed the commands for it. So I'm going to show you the simple version, which just takes one command block, and the complex version, which has a data pack, which you can download in the description. So in his video, he basically showed that now with new commands, you're able to shoot an arrow, ride it, and then return to where you came from. And you can do the writing part in one command, but the return to where you came from actually takes a little bit more effort. And one thing that I also wanted to note is that you could actually do this way before the 1.19.4 update. It was just a little bit more complicated, but you definitely could have done it before without using ride, but with using /spectate and just forcing a player to spectate the arrow and follow it. But either way, it's a nice kind of usage of both of the most recent commands, and it can be a little teaching tool. So I will first show the command version, and this is what it looks like. You basically just ride the arrow, and once you hit the ending point or hit a villager, you get off of the arrow just like that. It's not as good because you don't get to return where you came from, but it basically accomplishes the effect. And so this can be done in just one command. You basically go to any arrow that is in your world, and you change the command to play at the arrow. Then you check for the origin, which would be an entity that has fired the arrow. Now this could actually happen to non-player entities like skeletons, and so after we go to the origin, we check to make sure the origin entity is a player. And you can also add tags or check for items if you're trying to do this to only a specific bow or something like that. Then, once you have specified that the entity that you are on is a player, then you run the ride mount command, which lets you mount on top of something. And so what you need to mount is the arrow. And this is why we did at s here, so that we can basically say that the nearest arrow is the original one we selected, because the chances of two entities having exactly identical coordinates is pretty much 0. This will almost always just be the arrow that was originally selected. And so that kind of accomplishes the goal. Now you have the question of how do you return to where you came from, and how do you do all those other little effects? Well, for that I actually used a data pack because it makes it a lot simpler, and it really just uses 3 functions and 1 predicate. And so the first function is your ticking function. Every tick these things are checked. And so the first thing you check is the same thing we had in the command. You are looking for a player that fired an arrow, or you're looking at an arrow and looking for the player that fired it. And so that player needs to not have a special tag just to prevent people from shooting multiple times while riding the same arrow. And then run the ride function. The ride function is going to say that they are riding an arrow and give them a tag to indicate that. It will make them ride the arrow just like we did in the command. And then this is where there could have been more efficient implementations, but I went with this one because it was very quick and very easy and represents and also demonstrates some additional usage of the new commands. And so what it does is it summons an area effect cloud, and then it TPs the area effect cloud so that it is facing the same way the player shot the arrow. And then finally, it actually puts an owner to the area effect cloud equal to the player's UUID. And what this does is that when I use on origin later on the area effect cloud, I can select the player by doing on origin. And then finally, I remove the tag from the area effect cloud to make this multiplayer compatible. Finally, we add an effect of invisibility just for fun. And then inside the main tick, we look for any player that is supposed to be riding an arrow and does not match this predicate, and the predicate just checks if the player is riding an arrow. And so if they are supposed to be riding an arrow and they are not riding an arrow, run the unride function, and the unride function removes the tag, and then finally it does some extra things. And so the things it does is it gives a tag to this player, and that tag is later removed, although I didn't do that. But that tag is later removed, but this is a temporary tag that's used just to indicate which player you're specifically looking for. And so we go to every area effect cloud, and there could be multiple of these sitting around, and they are area effect clouds that have a tag of return, so these are ones that were spawned by our function. Then we will look for their owner. Then if their owner, at s, has a tag of this, then they will be teleported to that area effect cloud. And then finally, under the same logic, if their owner has a tag of this, then it will kill the area effect cloud that is closest, which should be the same area effect cloud as this part. And then finally clear the effect of invisibility. All these things combine to make it both multiplayer friendly and worked pretty well, and not the 100% ideal representation. So that's pretty much it for this pack. Basically just shoot arrows, you ride them, and then when it lands you return. Pretty simple, but kind of a cool demonstration of new concepts that you can do a lot simpler or with less physical commands. It may not be the more efficient, I don't know, but it's definitely simpler and easier to explain. Hopefully you guys liked this video. Let me know what you want to see next, and I'll see you next time. Peace.